Okay, have you ever sat in an interview and you got this question that kind of maybe knocks you back on your heels a little bit? You didn't know how to answer it right from the get-go. And you got the feeling maybe subconsciously that, hey, is this tactical? What are they actually looking for here? And I'm not talking about the silly questions like the one I got asked, hey, if you could wave a magic wand and be a cereal, what would you be? Incidentally, it would be Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. I'm talking about some advanced interview questions. Today, I'm talking about 10 of those and giving you some simple, smart ways to answer them that will help you navigate the interview effectively. So, my name's Rob. I am a recovering corporate HR professional, and I do use the word professional very loosely. And I've spent about 27 years in corporate America at some amazing companies. And I'm on a mission to share what I've learned there with you in hopes that you could get that dream job, land that promotion, or just survive corporate America. So again, in today's video, I'm breaking down 10 advanced interview questions and helping you understand the why behind them in hopes that you can actually answer them effectively and win and ace that interview. So let's jump right in. These questions, they're not just about your resume, right? Everybody can read and ask questions about your resume and your results and all of that type of stuff. But these are the questions that actually test how you think, how you lead, how you collaborate. And sometimes I would argue these are more important than what you've done on your resume. So let's walk through each of them and help you handle them like a pro. So the first one is basically it could show up like, how do you deal with ambiguity? What do you do when things aren't clear? And what I would say to you is, do you sit and just wait for instructions? Because we have employees in our organization that actually will sit and wait to be told what to do next. They aren't a self-starter. They don't take initiative. They don't see the big picture. So what I would say is think of a real example from your history or your experience where you can say, hey, I focused on the main goal. I broke what I knew was in front of me into small steps. And then I talked to others to help me stay on track, even though the main goal, say, maybe was a bit ambiguous or whatever the situation was. So the other thing I would say is, how do you move forward with the information you have? If you can narrate that to a hiring manager or a recruiter and help them say, yeah, this is chaos and it was super ambiguous with no deliverables or whatever it was, but here's what I did with the information I had, that's going to help you sail through that question successfully. The next one is about your collaboration skills, right? So how do you get buy-in without being a boss or a leader or higher than the people you're working with, right? So you need to show how your idea helps the overall team. So it's a win-win, right? You have to have some really good listening skills to understand what the other players in this equation need and see if you can create, again, a win-win scenario for them to help, again, drive to whatever the goal is at hand, and how you collaborate with people. Because if I've had people sit in front of me as a recruiter where you talk about collaboration and their idea of collaboration is frankly the opposite. It's where they're saying, hey, I set out my expectations and then everybody has to fall in line. That's a true example of an answer I got once. That's not collaborative. That's more command and control. Some organizations that works in, none of which the ones I've worked at, but that's not a great answer. You really want to show how you can lead from a point of influence and collaboration so that everybody's inputs are taken into consideration for the ultimate goal of the project or the initiative or whatever is at hand. So again, think through that. Give some real life examples of how you've encouraged collaboration either cross-functionally amongst peers or whatever the situation was at hand, and just how you led through that process from a point of influence. And I'm sure that will really be of interest to a hiring manager or a recruiter. All right, what do you do with too many urgent tasks, right? You've got all this stuff coming at you. So the recruiters, the hiring managers are going to want to look for how you prioritize those tasks or reprioritize, right? Because every task can't be urgent, right? So you have to think about how do you look, explain to them, how do you look at what the impact of each of these tasks is? How do you prioritize them? Ask for input as needed, right? And I think this is really important. A lot of people who are high performers are sometimes afraid or reluctant to ask for help because that makes them think that they're going to look weak. When in reality is you're saying, hey, you've got a lot of stuff coming at me. How can I prioritize this, right? So you're working in concert with your leader or whoever's throwing these tasks at you. If you're reprioritizing all the time and showing how you do that methodically, you can't just say, hey, everything that comes to my desk is the highest priority and I just power through and get it done. Okay, you're going to get overworked and overutilized very quickly if that's how you take things under control. Because if you say, I really approach it by, I take things on, but I want to do a good job on each of these tasks. So I work with the key stakeholders to reprioritize those. So we're all working off the same sheet of music and the same expectations. And that will be a great answer in the end. All right, this next one I loved because I do think it's wildly important, especially from a leadership position, but also, it could be from an individual contributor position. And that is, how do you help a struggling teammate? When I was at Starbucks, that we used to have on your performance evaluation is your impact on others' success, right? Whether you're a leader or not a leader, the culture of Starbucks believed that anybody could have an impact on somebody else's success. How do you do that, right? You might think of a time when you help somebody that was struggling, right? Walk them through that story. Hey, maybe you spoke to them privately. You really sought to understand where they were coming from and then help them, coach them, into moving forward and moving past whatever struggle was at hand. And then offering that support and helping them put a plan in place so that they can move forward. Having a positive impact on someone else's success can say volumes, not only about who you are as a person, but how you function on a team or as a leader. All right, this next one I hate, and I don't know why when I interview, I never prepare for this because it always comes up and I kind of always flop on it. And that's, what do you do to stay current? I don't know. In HR, I might say, oh, I'm a member of SHRM. I'm not. I don't read the stuff on that. It's boring. Just keeping it real. Think about, maybe there's some outside the box things, right? You could say, hey, perhaps I watch a lot of YouTube, right? YouTube adds a lot of value. I have several channels I subscribe to, and this is the value I get from those channels. That's how I consume development type material. You have to think about and be prepared for that question because it will come up and you want a really thoughtful answer about how you stay up and current on things. If YouTube's great, if you read blogs, that's great. Just have a good answer to get in and get out of that. And speaking of YouTube, if you like this type of content, I would be absolutely honored if you would like and subscribe to my channel. It is a bit of a passion project for me and every subscriber helps me out. So I really appreciate it. So on to the next question. What do you do when something didn't turn out as planned? And I think this is a great opportunity for you to build trust with the person sitting across from you at the interview table or on the screen or whatever it is, but also show how you own your mistakes, right? Take that accountability. Give a specific example where you learned from your mistakes and walk them through the process of how you took accountability or ownership for the problem, if that's the case, how you got feedback and what you did with that feedback, and then how you got better as a result. Everybody loves a comeback story. So if you can kind of flip the script, it's not a negative here, and say, yeah, this didn't work out, but this is what I did and it didn't happen again. That's a great answer. Now, this one, I've not been really asked this question in the past. How do you work cross-culturally? And maybe a lot of global organizations would ask them something like this, especially if you're on a team that has, key stakeholders in different countries or what have you. And here's the thing, maybe you don't have experience, but you just need to lead with kind of empathy, right? So you say, hey, I always stay respectful. I ask questions when I'm unsure, just so I'm clear, and I focus what our shared goals is, right? And then everything else kind of falls away and we can work together as a team. But again, I think it really speaks to they're looking for, hey, is this an empathetic person that can work and understand people from different cultures and even be okay with saying, you know what, I don't understand what you're saying, so how can we work through this and just kind of, work better as a team? So think through that, especially if you're applying for a global type role where you are going to be interfacing with people from different countries. It is important for the hiring team to understand how you would relate to and work well with, again, people who are different from you. Okay, this one's different. And I got some feedback from a former leader that I supported. The question is, what makes you different from everybody else that I've been talking to with respect to this position? And you need to think of a few things that make you unique, that make you, the purple unicorn, as I would say, right? So think about those. They need to be authentic and specific to you. But, when I was at Boeing, I used to describe myself as which one of these things is not like the other. Everybody there at the time dressed in shades of gray or blue. I roll up in my sneakers and my khakis, right? And that was just kind of a metaphor for how I showed up. And the one time I was working with the senior vice president of sales, who was my client, and I asked him one day, why did you hire me? Because we were very different. And that was why he hired me. He wanted somebody different from outside the organization that did not grow up at Boeing. And he just liked how I operated just from the interview. And quite frankly, I wasn't trying to be anybody but myself in the interview, which was freeing, and for lack of a better word, because I could just be myself, relax in the interview, and say exactly what I thought. And that paid off because I got a job and I got to work with a really cool leader who was different from me, but we actually had a really good relationship. And when I left Boeing, he was mad at me. But he sent me a card saying, I'm mad that you're leaving. I hope you'll change your mind. But I want you to know you changed me as a person. And I treasure that card. I still have it in my office. Think about what makes you different, what makes you unique, and what makes you that purple unicorn. The next question is, how do you lead a team, or what is your leadership style? Maybe this is the first time you're interviewing for a leadership role, so you've not actually led a team formally. So I would encourage you to say, look back of all the leaders you've worked for, right? And think about one that you particularly thrived under, and look at those characteristics that resonated with you, and then say, you know what, I haven't led a team, but here, let me describe a leader that I worked well with and that I aspire to be, and talk through those different characteristics, right? Or if you have led a team, you can say, hey, you know what? I am not a one-trick pony. I'm not a one-size-fits-all approach. So everybody that's on my team, I approach differently, and I want my relationship to be very unique to them. Some need a lot of guidance and hands-on, some don't. Right? So you can't just be one size fits all approach. You've got to be able to kind of flex into each of your different teammates. So again, specifics matter here. Think of a time when you were in a leadership role, even if it was leading a project or something like that, where you're interfaced with other people, and walk them through what your North Star was from that leadership role, what you really anchored yourself from a values perspective, and how that kind of translated into your impact as a leader on those people that were working with you or for you. And I think that will be a great story, and probably have the hiring team wanting to know more about your style. Okay, the next one, again, this may be, I was going to say, it could be a leadership role that this question would come up from, but frankly, it could be any role that's maybe a bit of a higher stakes or a decision-making type role. And that is, how do you make big decisions? Think about a very big decision you had to make that you had ownership of. And, I would structure it in a way to say, hey, I look at the facts, I weigh what the long-term impact on the business will be, and then I consult others in different parts of the business or other key stakeholders or whatever the situation may be. So you're really presenting a holistic framework that you approach when you're making these decisions. And if you can think of a specific example, that's great. If you have to kind of think hypothetically, again, structure it that you're leaving no stone unturned when making a decision so you can make an informed decision. At the end of the day, or at the end of the interview, as we're talking about, you've got to think beyond what's just on your resume, because you're going to get asked that stuff, but you've got to prepare for some of those other questions that focus on your leadership, your collaboration, who you are as a potential employee, and be thinking about some of these questions in those terms as you prepare for those interviews. So practice these answers, be prepared for them. Don't get blindsided like, I usually do on that one about how do you stay current. Make sure you do have a good answer at the ready for those, and therefore it won't knock you on your heels in the interview. You'll be prepared for it, and you will effortlessly, keep them interested in you as a candidate, which hopefully will then inform an offer at the end of the day. day. So again, my name's Rob. I hope you enjoy this content. Again, I'd be honored if you would like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out. And leave a message in the comment. What kind of interview questions have you heard that are super advanced and you kind of were like, why are they asking me this? I'd love to hear from you. So leave a message in the comments. And until next time, I hope all is well on your end, and take care. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.